Welcome to One Big Boat. We're all in this together. A show focused on people and organizations whose work is making a true difference in people's lives. Today, we welcome Carolyn Casey, the founder and executive director of Project 351.
Started out with a one-year leadership journey, which has now evolved to a 5-year leadership journey that begins in the 8th grade and goes to and through high school.
She's on board to talk about harnessing the ambition and determination of 8th graders and helping them grow into community leaders. That's next on One Big Boat. We're all in this together. So obviously you are a client of ours.
Yes.
Because I got the gear. And
We're very lucky.
I love this.
I'm so glad. Thank you for wearing it. Make us look good.
It's when I first heard about it, I thought it was the greatest program ever. And why don't you just give me the 411 what it is, and so people know.
So Project 351, we are a youth-led movement for change, and our sort of core consumer is an 8th grade unsung hero that represents each of the 351 cities and towns across the Commonwealth. And we really started out with a one-year leadership journey, which has now evolved to a 5-year leadership journey that begins in the 8th grade and goes to and through high school. And our mission is first to unify the Commonwealth. And so through the idealism and the wisdom and the incredible leadership skills of 8th graders and high school alumni, to unite the state in common cause and to demonstrate that across all facets of diversity, including geographic, so urban, suburban, rural, and island, that young people can be a force for unity. So that's number one. Number two is our second mission is to demonstrate that young people can be a force for transformative social change. And so we mobilize around campaigns that address the causes and consequences of poverty, racism, bias, and discrimination, mental health and wellness, and civic polarization. And through those campaigns are able to demonstrate social impact at scale. So for example, our spring service is for Cradles to Crayons, which is a neighbor around here. And last year we had 487 service projects across the state. And annually, our 8th graders are the largest in-kind donor to Cradles to Crayons. So they do about 17 to 19% of all in-kind donations to Cradles to Crayons comes from Project 351. And so they get to flex their muscle on that very important outcome. So unity first, social outcomes second. And then third is to develop this diverse generation of change makers that can go into any sector and be a catalyst for change. And so we've been doing it now for 15 years, and we've had over 5,500 8th graders engage with us, and their collective impact is 1.4 million lives. But it's much more than that.
It's way more than that. I talk all the time that sometimes these things are pebbles. Mm-hmm. And they're thrown into the ocean, they're thrown into a pond, and those ripples. And it's hard to quantify all the change that's made. And meeting your kids really depresses me because they're so amazing. And I'm thinking they're 8th graders, and I'm 57, and I really haven't done a whole lot compared to what they're doing. And,
I say the same thing.
How do you find them?
So, and I think one of the things that I always want to remind people is because people are always, they're so inspired and impressed, and our young people are unsung heroes and quiet leaders. So they are young people who do not identify as a leader. And so our process is educators select them, because probably 50% of the young people in the room on launch day wouldn't raise their hand for a program like Project 351. They just don't see themselves that way. And we do, and their educators do. We believe that it's, within every young person that they have the skills and the vision, the passion to create positive change. They just don't have the platform, the resources, or the mentors. And so, we just have, and they're always, they're so kind. They're always like thanking me. And I always tell them, I'm like, we thank you. Like, all we're doing is calling forth what's already within you. And it's nothing that we do. It's really about how you're responding to the opportunity. But they really do find their voice. And they always say, we find our people at Project 351. So they get to sort of market assemble with like-minded change makers who share their same values. And it becomes sort of really mutually reinforcing. It's really cool how they sort of lift each other up.
So, the educators looking at them like, is this like a process? Like, oh, they got a fifth grader who's up and coming?
Yeah.
Is it, really?
Well, so one of the really cool things now that we're turning 15, and there are in some schools where they start spotting them in sixth grade. Like, we have one of our, I won't say the school, but one of our champion principals, it's one of the largest middle schools in the state. And in seventh grade, his teachers start looking for who's going to be our ambassadors next year. And they do a really cool thing where they have the current ambassadors sort of pass the baton the summer before the next set of ambassadors, eighth grade year. And they get to sort of be an apprentice to the current ambassadors. And creating that continuum within the school is really important to us, because one of our other our goals in partnership with Mass Association of School Superintendents and our local educators is to help build values-based school cultures. So our values of kindness, compassion, humility, and gratitude, and how our ambassadors and our service campaigns can be vehicles for young people beyond the ambassador. So they're a catalyst for mobilizing thousands of other middle school, elementary school, high school students in service with us. And through those campaign, or through playbook, or through what we're doing for Be Kind to Your Mind Month, which is our mental health, is to build an environment that is about compassion, that's about respect for the dignity of all, and that lets young people know that, one, they don't have to wear the Navy shirt, the Navy shirt of our eighth graders. They don't need to wear that to make change. They can be part of a movement, and to help build that culture in that school. So our young people are really instrumental in that, because there are literally our ambassador, no pun intended, in that school and responsible for leading the campaigns.
And when they come, so you're picking them,
Yep.
or they're getting picked by educators. They come to you. They're really not full-fledged leaders yet,
Right.
because you're trying to like unearth that.
Yes.
When do they pick their service project?
So the way it works for the ambassadors, we call it a 12-month leadership journey. And it's preordained what they're going to do, because in the eighth grade, and especially when you're trying to mobilize, 500 service projects, to have it be 500 different service projects, it would not be successful. So we have 3 service campaigns that they are invited to lead. So Spring Service, which is about their enrichment opportunity, is to learn about childhood poverty and childhood homelessness. And then we do 9/11 Tribute Service, which is in support of Home Base and Mass Military Heroes Fund. And we do that in memory of the 206 Massachusetts victims on 9/11, and then Massachusetts fallen heroes since 9/11. So we honor, and now sadly the number grows, over 500. So we honor all the victims and then all the fallen heroes. And then their final campaign, Fall Service, is their mission is to eradicate hunger, and they support their hometown food pantries. And but what their leadership trajectory looks like is it's a sort of a scaffolding up through the year. So Spring Service is really the basics. We teach them, how to write an email to their principal to get permission to lead service, how to lead a meeting, how to do an agenda, how to delegate tasks, how to organize a project, measure impact, advertise. It's called STW, spread the word. And then by the time you get to Fall Service, we're layering on the leadership emphasis is on civic engagement. So we teach them how to engage media, elected officials, and local businesses as allies in change. And so it's by the end of the year, they're going from knowing how to lead a service project to how do I advocate for change and how do I build a coalition for change. And so that's sort of how the trajectory works. And then I know you know this, that we gather them together twice. So launch day in Boston and then leadership reunion at Gillette. And then we also engage them in May, Be Kind to Your Mind Month, which is, you are probably aware that there is a youth mental health crisis, and which permeates our community. We can feel it. And so our May is directed, it's all mental health and wellness. It's programming, it's engagement, it's inspirational. It's inspiration, it's service. We do a thing called Threads of Hope. And it's a way of creating a safe space and a really accessible way of talking about mental health and talking about resources and best practices and the powerful vulnerability of their near peers to talk about it, which then becomes very empowering for them as well. So,
how has it changed over 15 years? Have you seen issues?
Mm-hmm.
Do the kids seem like they're older? Have they seemed like they've experienced more now? How's that worked?
Yeah, so that's the biggest. I mean, so Project 351 has changed remarkably and programmatically, because now we have this high school program, which is its own, which is awesome and necessary for us because they're so fundamental to leading our young people, our ambassadors. But in terms of our 8th graders, and we always ask them what their issues are. What are your passion issues and what are you concerned about? And 15 years ago, it was hunger, the environment, kids, like things like that. All important, but very, I don't want to say vanilla, but general. Now they write about school shootings. They write about mental health crisis, suicide, ideation, gender equity, sexual assault. They write about these, on their 8th grade, like reg form. They also write about the climate crisis, and homelessness, poverty, things related to children. So the sort of the environment and children, veterans and military are always high, always have been, always remain. But then you have a whole set of new issues that are much more complex and emotional, and they'll write about we talk in their essays, we celebrate Dr. King as our sort of aspiration, the vision of the beloved community. So we ask them, Dr. King had a dream. What's your dream? And what they write is like heartbreaking.
It stops you.
Yeah. Oh, and they're like, I dream of a day where I go to school and I don't have to do shooting drills. Or I dream of a day when women can walk down the street and not be harassed. These are 13-year-olds. And this is their reality and what they're thinking about. But the good news is that the model for empowering them and amplifying their voice is, remains incredibly relevant and effective and powerful for them. And that they, we just did a call. We do weekly Zooms, and we had last night, and we had 3 of our high school alums speak to them about different aspects of Project 351. And it was just so inspiring, the conversations between the 8th graders and the high school students, and the admiration that the 8th graders have for the high school students. But at the end of the call, there's always, I'm like, okay, good night. And then there's always like 10 that stay on at the end. They have all other questions. And, one of our young people said, she just kept saying, thank you. I feel seen. I was like, you are seen, like we see you, And I think that's really important for young people, to feel like their voice matters, and it feels sort of simple and fundamental, but it actually is simple and fundamental, like respect your neighbor, be kind, lend a helping hand.
Coming up.
One of our leadership pathways is the Playbook Initiative, and that is a partnership with the Boston Celtics.
The importance of strategic partnerships. Is it interesting to you to see maybe like a kid from Nantucket, like maybe hang out with somebody from Springfield,
Totally.
that kind of thing?
So we organize our young people on 40 teams, and we call them service hero teams. So we were just talking about Billy Starr. We had a Billy Emeritus Starr service hero team. So we honor 40 leaders. We always honor John Lewis, Nelson Mandela, Malala, Anne Frank. We honor sort of global change makers. And then we honor from Massachusetts, we always honor a fallen hero, an educator, 2 of our alums, and then other everyday heroes, because we want our young people to look at sort of the collective of the 40. So Mandela to somebody who just graduated from Project 351 last year. That's the range. And that they can see themselves in one of them. And each team's led by a high school alumni mentor. But the teams are geographically diverse. It's Nantucket and Brockton and Needham and Granby and Shrewsbury and
North
Pittsburgh,
Adams,
or
Florida,
whatever.
Mass.
Or Florida, or Peru, Mass, or Gosnold. And it is really powerful to see the relationships that form from very different lived experiences. And so they form intensely on the service hero teams, but we also have a regional structure. So the ambassadors around your community, you also do service with. But where we really see the sort of lifelong friendships is through our Alumni Leadership Council. So it's our high school. You have to apply, and it's a team of 120 high school students, freshmen, sophomore, junior, senior, and they applied to do one of our leadership pathways, which for us is capacity. We're a small team, so that they help our mission move forward, but it's also leadership development for them. And so investing in their further leadership development as they sort of graduate through each year of high school. And, I was mentioning one of our leadership pathways is the Playbook Initiative, and that is a partnership with the Boston Celtics. They have a very deep and considerable $25 million strategy called Celtics United, which addresses racial and social justice issues across a number of health, economic development, youth and education, arts. And so they asked us, we're so honored to do, 7 years ago to develop this program with them called the Playbook Initiative. And it is incredibly powerful. It's run by our high school, we call them trainers. And we engage our middle school students in courageous conversations on race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, and ability. And the way the model works is it's scenarios written by middle school students. So it's in their nomenclature. It's in their culture. It's in their, so they might write about a racial incident that happened in the girls' room or on the bus or on the cafeteria. And so it's very relatable for them. And, it's building awareness of the issues, but also they explore safe interventions, a series of them, and what would you be most comfortable in. And through a series of workshops, it's the idea that just like a sports playbook, this is a social playbook. And if you build this muscle and this sense of empathy and righteousness around issues of, injustice, that if something similar happens in real life, you run the play, you'll know how to respond. And so we do that for all of our 8th graders, but then we also do it, school districts apply. And so we do it in 20 school districts across the Commonwealth. But that's just an example of, one, our ability to scale social impact on issues that are incredibly important and at the forefront of this generation's passion issues, but also how, and the feedback that we get from educators, the difference between other programs that they've done and this, it's all about the high school leader because it's a near peer. Mm-hmm. And that the difference of that within like that space, it's a really difficult conversation. Adults can't do it. Like, we don't know how to do it. And so that's just an example of, one, how remarkable our young people are once they get into high school, but two, we have now, as opposed to 15 years ago, different strategies for scaling social impact and moving the needle. So
companies, you have an impressive list of companies that have backed you. Why do you think, and every nonprofit has to go through this. I always think of nonprofits as kind of like stocks.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to put your money into something, you're going to donate, you want to make sure that there's, something that you're proud of that they're doing. Mm-hmm. So why, and how hard is that for you? Because you obviously have a passion.
Terribly hard. Yes, it's awful. I hate raising money. And I did, I was at City Year for 8 years, and then and managed the Timberland relationship. And then I was at Timberland managing the City Year relationship. So I have both perspectives, which helps, gives me both courage and perspective. But I think we are really fortunate. I'll just call out like Blue Cross Blue Shield. We just did fall service with them. And, it's about values alignment. It's about, one of the things my former CEO at Timberland would always say, the most important title I have is not CEO, it's DAD. And that reminder that everybody pulls in and it's at work and has a job to do, but at the end of the day, they're your brother, sister, father, neighbor, and they have a stake in the community in which they live, and they have a stake in the future that they want to build for their children. And so, at Project 351, we work with companies who align with us because of our core values, but or core values, number one. But number two is we might share a passion issue. So with Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's about eradicating hunger. And I cannot say enough good things about Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I'm not paid for this endorsement, but the experience of working with them, it is like a full court press. They are, they write the check, which is fantastic because we need it, but they go far beyond that. It's about their volunteer engagement. It's about, I would tell my team, like, I do meetings on our fall service, and there are all these Zoom meetings, and it was like 9 people from Blue Cross Blue Shield, like public affairs and their PR and this, because they want to make sure they are telling the story that they want to tell. And I mean that in a positive way, like our story, the young people's story, and the thought and care and the intentionality in everything that they did throughout that was always about elevating our young people. And, I don't think, I know there's so many wonderful companies, but I just hold them up, and just because of that.
Because their engagement
and just the genuine, authentic belief in young people. And that's like my jam. Like, I'm all about young people. So when somebody, and the same, I really want to celebrate the Celtics. they're in Dave Hoffman and Cash Cannon and Tomei Barrows. They are in it, like this work is the work. And the respect and regard that they have, again, for high school students, they're entrusting these high school students to go in with the Celtics brand, which is $1 billion brand, right? And represent them. It's just, they're a very special team. But I think overall, when I was at Timberland, companies want to be, one, your work is hard, right? And so you want to have some aspect of your job that's joyful, and that you know that you are part of creating transformative and sustainable change in the communities in which you live and work. And we're so lucky to live in Boston because it's incredibly civically engaged. But yeah, it's also the worst part of my job. I hate raising money.
Well, we absolutely love working with you guys.
Well, thank you. You're very good to us.
How do people find you, and what do you want them to know before you got to go?
So we are at project351.org. And I think what we would want everybody to know is that every young person's remarkable. And these change makers and these bridge builders and these, social justice advocates are living on your street. They are your next door neighbor. They're your child, right? And so all of us have the opportunity right now in a world that is unfortunately becoming more divided and polarized, and the lack of civility, common courtesy, we're losing that. And I think our young people need adults who model values and belief in them in a way that is uplifting and reassuring and encouraging, and to get in there with them and do the service, do the civic engagement, and encourage their passion and their, there's a front page of the Globe story yesterday on one of our alums. His name is Connor Schoen, and he's class of 2013. He's been deeply involved since 2013. He started a nonprofit called Break Time, which is creating economic empowerment for homeless youth. And he bought a building for $6 million downtown. And this incredible story about Connor, and he was very kind. He talked about Project 351. That, for me, the greatest legacy we can have is, because I talked about 1.4 million lives. That's what they do with their Navy shirts on. The greatest impact Project 351 will make is because of the Connors of the world. Because of, like on launch day, we had 4 educators who were ambassadors, including an ambassador who was hired, a teacher, so Kyler, was hired by his bus captain. So the principal of this middle school, Sutton Middle School, Ann Corin, she's awesome, met Kyler when he was in 8th grade. And she was on his regional bus. So they went to launch and reunion. He was on the ALC, so 5 years. Went to UConn, studied to be a teacher, job opening, and she hires him. So she met him in 8th grade and hired him. And now he is the educator mentor for Bennett, who is Sutton's ambassador this year. So we are, to me, that is the thing that I think that's where our exponential impact will be. We have 2 elected officials, and they are stepping into all of the sectors and creating change. And that to me is the most exciting thing. So, and then of course, if anybody wants to support us, we're a very small nonprofit, so we would happily welcome support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One Big Boat is a production of Last Minute Productions Incorporated. This episode was produced by me, Jay Dobeck. Ethan Gallo is a sound engineer. Jim Johnson provided production support. Ryan Macheski was our show editor. Joanne Pilata is the production coordinator. And Vegas is the dog under the table. See you next time on One Big Boat. We're all in this together.